Kathie from The Quiet Rebellion, and today we have Anna with us. And Anna has a Substack that I subscribe to, and I've followed her on Instagram for a long time, and it's just really wonderful. So we're going to talk a lot about that today and a particular series that she's doing. So how are you, Anna?
Good. Thanks for having me. It's nice to be able to chat.
So great. So you are doing a series right now in your newsletter, and you've been talking about it on Instagram too, about unconventional success. Like how, so much of the world thinks of success in terms of fame or money or richness, and we're talking about things that maybe rebel against that. Is that a fair, really quick summary of what you're doing?
Yeah, I think what I'm doing is I'm kind of like trying to, I guess, just writing and sharing and stuff online. As you know, you might get a lot of people paying attention or you might not. And I think a lot of times we see the people who get more of an audience or interest. And so when you're trying to do it, like sometimes that feels, to me at least, feels like, okay, well, is that what I'm trying to do? And so I'm just kind of exploring the idea and really don't have too many answers myself, but I'm kind of looking to see how other people approach this and what it all means and how I might move forward, I guess.
Okay, great. And so, what was the? So I had talked to you sort of about this and something else was just that like one of the things I suffer from sometimes, even though I am going to be 51 in a few weeks, I still kind of occasionally fall into the comparison trap, right? Even though
Yeah,
I'm very
definitely.
happy with my life and what I'm doing
Mhm.
online, especially, I still kind of, I see somebody else doing something that feels really similar to what I'm doing. And for whatever reason, it seems more successful. And by that, I
Yeah.
mean the vanity metrics are high, right? Like they're getting a lot
Hmm.
of views or they're getting a lot of like interaction. That doesn't necessarily mean success or happiness or anything else. It just means, but I fall into that kind of comparison trap. So is that kind of
Hmm.
how that started for you a little bit, or was that the
I think so.
impetus?
Yeah. I think, yeah. And kind of, I started writing on Substack, I guess probably almost close, not quite 2 years ago. And so just a lot of, I'm mostly writing for myself what I want to share and not really hearing too much from other people and kind of like not always willing to put in the game. I guess it's not a game, but it feels like a game when
Yeah.
you have to like figure out how to attract people or whatever. So just and wondering, yeah, just like why do I want this? Do I want this? Who knows if it's even possible? That kind of thing. Yeah.
And as you've thought about that kind of thing, especially online, because it can be hard because I think, and this is a whole different subject, but I think people who are like us, like you and I, who are interested in simple or slow living, for example, also tend to be quite introverted or very quiet. If not
Hmm.
introverted, quiet.
Hmm.
We tend to be thinkers
Yeah.
and slow and everything. And so I think our audiences are as well. And they're not
That
always
makes
very
sense.
talkative. They're not always very
Yeah.
communicative. They don't always like chat. And I've had to like sometimes, because I have a paid membership program, it seemed like everybody was really quiet and I was like, okay, this is just not working. It must not be working. They must be unhappy. So I reached out to every single member and offered them the opportunity to sit down and talk with me. And like how I felt was that because I wasn't getting the feedback that they were unhappy, but that wasn't true. It's just that they're quiet. And so
Yeah.
yeah.
That makes a lot of sense. I hadn't actually really thought about it that way. And then there was something else I was going to say, and I lost it. Sorry.
That's okay. It'll if it comes back, we'll bring it up.
Yeah.
So that's how you kind of started exploring this idea. And as you've been kind of interviewing and talking to other people, has there been any nuggets of wisdom that you have felt really good about, or that have helped you even as you're kind of navigating this?
I think so. Yeah. I mean, I have only just begun. I've talked to a couple of people, and I haven't had a chance to read your responses yet, but I'm looking forward to that. I think, I guess for myself, like I think there's two sides to success where it's like the stuff that everybody seems to want and have and does feel in some ways feels desirable. And then, but I think on paper, I can also say like, I have all these amazing things and why would I want more? So I feel like the responses I've gotten so far have been very focused on personal experiences. And both of the people that I've shared so far on my newsletter are women who are using their interests and skills as well as a career as well, like not, a mega career, but like a satisfying work with other people. And so I think it's interesting that they didn't really, that wasn't the focus so much of their responses, I think. So that's been helpful for me because I think that's those areas of like letting go of all of the bigger outward looking things or things that people notice and focusing more on what I have in my own life is it's obvious. Like that's what we should be doing. But it can, especially when you're like trying to create something that's on the internet, it can be easy to sometimes to overlook that, I think. Or maybe it's just for me. I don't know.
No, I don't think that you're. I don't think that you. I mean this in the nicest way. Like you are unique, but I don't think that this experience is unique.
Yeah,
That's what I
yeah,
wanted to say. Like I didn't want that to be insulting. Like oh, you're not unique, but it's not. I think yeah, I think the online creating online is a whole different world, and it changes so
yeah.
fast as part of it too. Like what?
Yeah,
Because I've been blogging a really long time. In fact, I just updated a
yeah.
post that was like 15 years old. So like I have been blogging a really long time, and like so much has changed from 15 years ago to now that it's like
Hmm.
it's mind blowing, and so it's hard sometimes to feel settled, and so I get that. So
Yeah.
how do you think you recognize, or you or some of the people that you've talked to recognize when life feels full and maybe the standard success models really aren't necessary, even if like our lives don't? How
Mm.
do we recognize that okay, it's full enough, maybe we don't have to go for it? I mean, is that
Yeah.
true, you think? Do people feel that way, or do you feel that way?
I think that's what I desire is to like, I think over many years, the thing that I most would, if I was like, I have achieved success, like feeling really fulfilled. And obviously you can't feel that all the time. There's so many ups and downs and challenges, but that is, that's something that I continue to work towards. And I think for me, a helpful thing, and this probably isn't the case for everyone, is just realizing, kind of looking at the way that success is viewed and that like examining the cultural narrative and kind of not just unlearning some of these ideas and realizing that like the things we do, to take care of other people, to take care of our homes, creative work, that isn't something that is really valued in the larger society. So to me, that's helpful to recognize that and say, like, okay, it's not that it's not important. It's just, capitalism, money, etc. So that's for me, that's part of it is kind of unlearning some of these other ideas. But also, I think that, and then alongside that, like looking more inward and in how I spend my days and stuff like that.
Okay. And so do you think, excuse me, just choking on the air apparently. I don't know, it's not even smoky today. Excuse me. Many of us kind of do feel that pull, right? Because of the cultural,
Hmm.
especially in the United States, and I don't know this is true everywhere, but we're both in the United States, so we're going to talk
Yeah.
about where we live. In capitalism, definitely. There is this pull, even if like, right, like I see certain things that successful people do that aren't interesting at all to me, right? And when I say successful, I'm what I'm really saying are rich people, because
Hmm.
that's what we see, right? So we think that
Hmm.
maybe we need to be rich.
Yeah.
So we see that kind of idea, right? They're making a certain amount of money, or they appear to be making a certain amount of money. Plus, the other thing to remember is just because someone's making a lot of money doesn't mean that they're not like overwhelmed with debt. They don't
Yeah.
actually
Yeah.
have
Or
any.
yeah. Right. Right. Right.
So, but do you think there's a sign or something that can like tell us, okay, it's time to pause? Like, is there a certain thing that we maybe do or see or hear, act that maybe we should pause and look at our expectations? Do you think there's a sign, a universal sign, or something a lot of us maybe experience?
That's a good question. I mean, like you said, I'm definitely an introvert and I do think a lot about what am I doing? What does it all mean? So I don't know if that's what everybody's doing. And I do, this is a slight tangent, but I feel very lucky that I am able to recognize that like there's many things that matter more than like being rich and famous. And I think not everybody is exposed to that in the same way. And so I don't know. I don't know. Maybe just like how, are you satisfied? Are you fulfilled, because obviously being successful in the conventional way doesn't mean that you're really happy or that you have the things that you really want in your life. And so that's, I guess, satisfaction might, or fulfillment, or kind of the smaller things that aren't, what's the word? Some of them are tangible, but like a lot of them are more emotional or quality of life related rather than goods and things that you have.
Right. I think, and I've talked to my friend Angie, who has a Creative Simple Living blog. We've known each other for years, and we talk sometimes about simple living. And one of the things that she said to me years ago was something someone from her community had said to her, an older person who was just like, "We have enough." And
Mm-hmm.
so, like, that's the thing I think about a lot. Like,
Mm-hmm.
and I don't think that that doesn't mean that you can't have big dreams, right? Like, sure, I have big dreams, kind of like for my blog and my business, but I have enough too, right? So
Mm-hmm.
I'm
Mm-hmm.
content. And I think, but I don't think it's easy to come to that. And do you think that social media makes it harder? I think it does. Even though I'm on social media and I use it and I think there's good things, I think sometimes it makes it harder. Do you think so? It makes it harder to decide what's enough?
Yeah, I think, and like you said, comparison. And yeah, I guess I haven't thought a ton about like the enough piece, but well, I have, but maybe in a different way.
Oh,
I
well,
think,
tell us about that. Like, explain
I
that.
just think for me, like a lot of the uncertainty about success is not so much like what I can make a list of the things that I have in my house or in my life. It's more how I feel.
Mm-hmm.
I think, like, for me, I do my writing, I have a big garden. I don't make really any money from it. I'm with my kids a lot. And so I think that's an element of like, well, again, in our society, like you got to work, you got to make money, you got to, that basic thing is kind of like, so that's something that I sometimes feel is hard, like just learning how to value myself and it's not even what I do, because we all are very valuable no matter what we do, but
Right.
that's not the prevailing narrative. So I think that's what I think of probably when it comes to enough. And I'm not sure if that's what you're thinking of or not.
No, but that yes and no. So that was interesting. That's a good explanation too, though, because it is this idea of there is this idea of worth, and worth comes from
Yeah.
in our culture. I don't agree with this, but you're right. The narrative is your worth comes from how you make money, which is a shame
Yeah.
because not
Yeah.
everyone makes
Yeah.
money or needs to make money. And, yeah. So I understand completely what you're saying there. And it's a little different, but it's not at the same time because we do have to find a way to be creative. Like, not every creative pursuit necessarily has to be a side hustle that makes money,
Right.
which is something. And I understand when you're online to some extent, if you have things you have to pay for, right? Like,
Yeah.
if you want to, plus you want to pay for your own bills in your own life, but you also have overhead, which a lot of people don't always necessarily understand. Having a website
Hmm.
costs money,
Right. Right.
equipment to
Right.
do whatever, it all costs money. So you have to, yeah, it's still a business. You still have to make ends meet.
Yeah.
That
Yeah.
doesn't, a creative pursuit does not have to make money necessarily. So we can't have
Yeah.
hobbies.
And I think
Writing is a hobby.
in some ways, I think this is where what you're saying about social media, it's like it becomes, the desire, I guess, to share is a thing. Like it
Mm-hmm.
feels good, but it's also like, then what are you doing it because you enjoy it or because you want to show that you're doing it or because other people will be interested? And so I don't know. Like that's all fine, but it's kind of like another layer where is it a hobby that you do for you or to share with other people? And it could be both. I don't know. But I think that can make, and it sometimes just feels like, you know, it almost in the same way of like we find value or our self worth can be influenced by what we do for work or how we make money. It's like sometimes it feels like, there's many people just sharing whatever they feel like. But I think a lot of people are also like, I have to create something of value for other people to see. And that there's nothing wrong with that, but it also feels like sometimes we don't all have to be like giving, I don't know, like I, I share stuff, but sometimes I'm like, I don't have like special words of wisdom or like something that's gonna in a recipe or it's like it can feel like pressure or like everybody's sharing all this stuff that's so It's trying to add to people's lives, but sometimes there's just too much of it.
I think that's true. And I think, and I hope I'm right about this, I think people really crave authenticity, right? And so, and yeah, we hear a lot about that, right? Because like all the people who are like gurus are like, just be yourself, but be yourself and
Right,
produce valuable stuff. But
right.
I think sometimes it's just nice to see stuff that where you're not trying to sell me something. There comes a point where all of
Yes.
that stuff that becomes really like where it's obvious that they're trying to like produce high value content or whatever. It's obvious to me that they're just trying to sell me something somewhere along the line.
Hmm.
And that's
Hmm.
okay in some instances. I want to support creators and I want to support small businesses, but at the same time, like there's only so much that I want to take. And social media can become one large advertisement
Hmm.
that doesn't always make you feel good about yourself. Whether or not you're a content creator, whether or not you're a writer, it just could be this idea, so it can be a really tough thing to.
Yeah.
I do think that people just sometimes. The one sad thing about Instagram for me is that it moved away from just like still photos.
Hmm.
I
Yeah.
miss that. I miss the old days of, I miss the old days of Instagram where it
Yeah.
was just photos because it was fun to just kind of see a snapshot of somebody's life because you knew that
Hmm.
wasn't everything, right? You just know that's
Right.
like that's the garden harvest of the day or whatever. And that just felt good
Hmm.
because it was nice to just see what other people who are like me are doing without feeling like,
Yeah.
yeah, and yeah, the noise of videos and just everything. It's just not my thing. But what do you do for yourself? Like when the outside world feels really noisy and driven by this idea of like, we have to produce valuable content.
Hmm.
How do you come back to like your core values, your core
Yeah.
beliefs?
Um, Sometimes I just don't. Well, I guess when it comes to like I want to share my work, but I'm also if I don't feel motivated to, I just don't. So when I feel it, I do it. But I think some things that help me probably feel more fulfilled and more successful, I guess, are like I think one of the questions you had asked was about like a practice. And so
Mm-hmm.
I think for me like making things and doing creative stuff, especially like I was just out harvesting my garlic today, cooking, just like physically interacting with the world and creating something is really, I find to be really supportive and valuable to me in a way that helps me feel maybe a little more grounded and kind of connected to where I am and what I'm doing. And I think another thing that I don't know if this, I guess I just like have come to really want to try to trust myself more than anything else. So there's, whether you're trying to be successful or whatever, there's so many messages from just people we know and social media and everything about what we should be doing, what habits might make our lives better. And so I think I am not always good at this, but I try to listen to what I think I need more than what other people or what other ideas are out there. And that seems kind of simple, but it's not something that we're really taught to do, I don't think.
I agree. We're not really taught. And I think sometimes, and I know this is true for me, right? Because I'll listen to a business podcast or whatever, and I listen to one in particular. I happen to like the host. I happen to have met him at a conference, and I really like him as a person. I mean, he seems very genuine and real. But his podcast is always like very much about like making $1 million in a year or whatever.
Mhm.
And so, like, I had to just stop listening to the podcast. Like now, I just kind of look at the title and I decide right away whether or not it's something I want to listen to. And if the title is like how to make $1,000 in a month or whatever, then I'm just like I'm not going to listen to that because it's just
Yeah.
plus for any it's just so the chances of that are so small. And yes, it does happen for some people, but it's also like years in the making. It doesn't happen overnight, even though it yeah. So I agree with you. And I think sometimes our social media lives and online lives, we're bombarded with those messages constantly. Like it's just like it's all going to happen and it's going to be so great and it's going to happen with no work, and that's just not how it goes. But it's really hard to turn that off.
Hmm.
And we are kind of conditioned, especially in kind of this capitalism system, to like just hustle for that $1 million, whether or not we really need that $1 million. I said I was interviewed on a business podcast one time, and I was like, I don't need to make $1 million a year. And she was actually kind of horrified and like tried to like rush me through that because it didn't match what she was trying to say. But I don't need to make $1 million
Yeah.
a year. And so I don't want to work that hard, and I don't want to hire a staff, and I don't want to do all that. And so it's okay to say, it's okay. So do you think there was anything that kind of gave you permission to just be like, it's okay for me to explore this idea, and it's okay for me to just say, I don't want that? Was there a particular moment that really struck out to you?
I don't know. I've definitely never thought about making that much money anytime, but I think for me, I think I've just always kind of been an introvert and moved more towards quieter things. And I do enjoy sharing these ideas, but I think I don't know. I think it's like I want to be able to do my creative work and have it received in some way, but I don't necessarily have bigger expectations than that. But I think it's been a learning from other people, reading some interesting stuff, kind of that like, even if two people like what you did, it's still valuable. That kind of thing. And I think that's kind of what I'm still working through a little bit. And I know that like the work that I do has a lot of value for me, but I think when it's something that you're putting out on the internet, I guess it sometimes doesn't feel like quite enough to just be like, yes, this is so valuable in my life. But it should be, I think. I don't know. I don't know. So that's kind of what I'm thinking about and working on, I guess.
Right. Because celebrating small wins in a society that really like focuses on big accomplishments, right? Like when the Olympics were happening several years ago, one of the swimmers, she had won a couple of silver medals, and she was like really excited about it. But the media was like only focusing on the gold medals, and she's like, "How can I be disappointed?" Right? Like, how can I be disappointed?
Right.
Look how far I got. Who cares that I came in second?
Yeah, that's so true.
It is really true. And so I think it can be hard. And I'm going to be honest that my husband's like really amazing. We've been married a long time, and he's older, so he doesn't fully understand always, and he's not super online, so he doesn't fully understand everything. But like if I get 4 likes on something, he just thinks that's like the best thing in the whole world. And so that helps me to some extent because I just need to see it from like someone else's eyes.
Yeah.
So I think sometimes that's a good way to like celebrate small wins. And I've been online long enough that I do have like friends who are also online who will like tell me something, right? Like I have friends who will be like, "Hey, you made a really terrible typo," which like, great, let me know that so I can fix it. But who will also, those same people will also like be like, "That was really great. I really enjoyed whatever." And so it helps to have that. It's not always easy to have that, especially for introverts.
Yeah, no, I think it is like have either guess whatever feels good to you. Like if it's the people that are always telling you they appreciated what you did or shared, or maybe a group of other creative people who understand your experience and you can connect that way. I think that is definitely really valuable.
And
And that's, I mean,
go ahead.
Sorry.
No, you please.
I feel like, ultimately, like that's probably much more satisfying and valuable than thousands of likes or shares or, maybe having more people joining your program or whatever would matter. But the people who really care about what you're doing is a lot. Yeah, that's something important.
And one of the things this conversation is kind of making me realize on a personal level, as someone who uses social media and is also an introvert and I do not comment very often.
Yeah.
I will scroll through and I will like, and I often just kind of scroll and I try to like because I know that helps because I know from being on the other end, I know that the more interaction something gets, the better the algorithm will show it to other people. And I want to help people. So I try to make sure to do that. But often I just scroll through like we all do mindlessly.
Yeah.
But it reminds me that to not just be a consumer, but to be like a participant. So if I really like something, I should make sure I say something. I often don't because I feel like I don't have anything to add to the conversation. Like I feel like, oh, that was a great whatever. That was a great caption. That was a great video. I really enjoyed it. You taught me something, but I don't have anything to add to the conversation. So I don't comment.
Yeah.
But maybe we should all try to anyway.
Yeah, I mean, it's probably good to for people who are sharing, to realize that there's more people out there who aren't responding, but they're still receiving it or enjoying it. And maybe it is good to engage more, to show that you appreciate it or something.
Right. I had reached out to somebody that I was interested in interviewing on the podcast who I've been following on Threads for a long time. She writes really amazing, wonderful threads, and I've been following her for a long time. So I sent her an email and I was like, but she has no idea that I have been following her for a long time, because I don't think I've ever once actually commented on anything. Because again, what she writes is so succinct and perfect, and I'm not ever going to troll or fight with somebody. Obviously, that's ridiculous. But I don't have anything that I feel like I don't have anything to add, and so she has no idea that I've been following her for years. So this has just been it was a little light bulb. Maybe we should interact at least now
Yeah,
and
I
then.
mean, it
Even if you
is.
say that was nice, that was really great, I enjoyed that. That's something.
Yeah. Yeah, that's I think that's kind of the other side of social media in some ways, that like we don't really know who's out there
Right.
appreciating it if they're not speaking up. So,
Right.
and it's not like if you can't or don't want to, that's okay. But it
Right.
kind of, I guess it kind of like simplifies and flattens the interactions because it's easy to not respond,
Mm-hmm.
even if it's something you appreciate.
Right. Yeah, I'm trying to remember to. I'm gonna try. I'm gonna try. I make no promises that I will succeed, but I'm gonna try to yeah. And as I'm trying to also make sure I limit how much time I spend on social media,
Right.
because
Yeah.
wow, it can really be. Yeah, especially lately, it can be really. It can just be a tough place. So limit. So maybe that's a good way, though. Like, place a time limit on your social media activities, but while you're doing that, make sure you're actually interacting. And so if you're doing that,
Hmm.
your time will be spent a little differently. It's probably a good idea. All right. Do you find a way to celebrate your small wins at all? Like, whatever might be a small win to you.
I think so. But I think I need to focus more on that, because I think the way my brain works, it just tends to get stuck on the negative, which I know everybody does. But
Mm-hmm.
I think it's easy to brush things off. And like, I guess right now, like my garden is flourishing, and that's something I do that benefits my family and people I know, but it's not like I don't do it for anybody else really
Right.
except us. And so it's I love it and I enjoy it, and I'm I celebrate it when I eat delicious food and when I'm out there, but that's kind of like I should probably do that more with other things too.
Right. It's what sometimes it's one of those things easier said than done. And I know
Yeah,
that.
but I think you're right. I think it's important. It is definitely easier said than done, but
Right.
let's do that too.
And as you think about success and as you've been kind of like navigating this, have you found that sometimes it's necessary to let go of certain concepts that maybe you had been holding on to as you try to like navigate this? And if so, how are you doing that? How are you letting go of things that maybe aren't serving you?
Yeah. I think I do have been doing a lot of that, and I think for me a lot of that is kind of just the unlearning that I was talking about earlier, and kind of re-examining things that seem like either that's what everybody does or that's what we're supposed to do. And I mean, and I think as you've pointed out, like choosing the things that we do and continuing on with work that matters to us, even if it's not ever going to become a huge thing, is a way of letting go of a lot of conventional ideas. And there's been times when I've had creative things that I've tried, and I've just been like, well, it's not really going anywhere, so I'm not going to keep doing it. And that might make total sense, but I think I'm in a place now where I'm more interested in like continuing on, because I like what I'm doing, whether or not it becomes what other people would say is successful. So I don't I think just mostly my unlearning process, I feel like, has actually a lot of it's come from being a parent and having to rethink a lot of things as I help my kids through life and as we're there as a family. And that's kind of was maybe the beginning of a process. And so this is just another step in the unlearning of conventional ideas, I guess.
Right. Yeah, I think unlearning is really hard, and I'm with you. I tried to do it on a number of different things, and especially because you're probably unlearning certain things that you have probably heard since you were a child,
Right.
right? In some way or another, and so it's hard for that. It's hard, but
Yes.
I think it's
But
important, but it's
yeah.
hard. Yeah.
Yeah, and that just got me thinking about like what you were talking about, celebrating small wins. I think unlearning can be so hard, and it's kind of not always a fun thing to do. You have to kind of rearrange whole concepts that you had. But there's the other side of like, well, you know what? I'm not like, maybe celebrating small wins is a way of kind of saying, of doing something fun that's less conventional, and that's not what everybody, that you've unlearned, that you're celebrating your own version of success. So that could be an enjoyable part of unlearning.
Yeah. And because I know it is hard, but do you think, or do you have you like talked to other people, like friends or family or whoever? Is there someone else that you're talking to about this on a regular basis that you're able to, maybe they're, who understands and is maybe able to hold you a little accountable or kind of push a little bit? Are you doing any of that?
I think mostly in some ways, yeah. I think I've in a couple groups that maybe aren't pushing but are kind of offering a different way. And
Mm-hmm.
so instead of so then I am able to see that and figure out what works for me. And it's nice to have people to like ask or share these experiences, and have other people who are doing something that isn't what everybody else is doing, because it can be really hard if nobody else around you, or that
Right.
you're in contact with, is doing that. So it's definitely important to have other people on the journey.
Right. I have found, because I personally respond well to tough love. I know not everybody does, and that's fine. But I personally do, and so I have a few people who will just call me out, right? Like if I do something or if I say something in conversation with them, and they'll be like, "Whoa, wait, what?" You know what I mean? And so
Mm,
it's helpful to have people who maybe don't have the same goals but are on a similar path as you,
mm,
and who can like offer support and encouragement, but also be like, "Are you sure that's really what you want to do?" Because
mhm,
sometimes,
yeah.
and it's helpful, and it's helpful to have people be like, "Yeah, that sounds great, but that's also going to be so much work, and are you willing to, like, what are you willing to give up to do that or
Mhm.
whatever?" It's important. All right, that's really great. And so, if you could offer one piece of advice to someone who is like, as if you could drill it down to like one thing, because I know it's many things, but if you could offer like one piece for someone who's like, okay, like I want to try and explore this idea for myself, is there something you would offer them to explain or do?
Well, I guess I can think of two things kind
Mhm.
of. I think, well, I don't know. I guess I don't have like a specific practice or task, but first of all, I started this interview series mainly because as I was writing about success and wondering about it and exploring it, I was like, wouldn't it be great to hear from some other people? And I think I know a few people who would be willing to share. So you don't have to start an interview series, but it can be interesting to, at least for me, like hear from other people and get other perspectives, because I'm mostly going around in circles in my brain.
Mm-hmm.
And then I think for me, like when we were talking about unlearning, like a lot of that is expectations, and maybe trying to let go of other people's or the world's expectations. And as I said earlier, like figuring out how you can trust yourself, and that might be having other people to support you, connecting with other people, but also just figuring out, as you said, like what matters the most to you, what's enough. And that's a big process. But
Mm-hmm.
I find for me, writing is really helpful to kind of process thoughts and ideas, but it might be engaging in whatever you really enjoy, that is what feels fulfilling and meaningful, and that you might want more of in your life. I don't know.
No, that's it. Those are great pieces of advice. And so, do you think as people move through this, I mean, obviously, I think if you just start to question, that's like a start. So, and there's no real end, right? Like, I feel like that's what you're saying also. Like, there's no end. This is just a process.
Maybe
There's no
there
goal at
is,
the end
but
of it.
no, not really.
Great. And do
I
you,
don't
I
know.
mean, oh, go ahead. Were you going to say, do you think there
No,
is?
I mean, maybe everyone has their own goal, but I feel like there is a process is kind of where I am most of the time
Right.
in process.
Well, this is not exactly the same. As someone who has been like choosing a simple life, a voluntarily simple life for like 3 decades, I can say that there are times in my life, and I think this is true about success too for my blogs and things, is like there are times when I feel really content, like, and I have like, I am good and I'm cruising, and then
Mm-hmm.
something will happen and I'm not. So I think that's life for everyone.
Yeah.
But I think our culture and certainly social media, it makes us think that we're always supposed to be like happy and content, and it's always going to
Mm-hmm.
be that way, and the minute it's not, something's wrong. But I don't necessarily think that's true. I think that's just
Yeah.
life.
Yeah.
I think some days we're happy and some days we're not. We just, that's okay, and that's okay, and that's the thing. I think we have to just embrace the fact that some days it's just not going to feel as good as other days. And
Mm-hmm.
so yeah, I think I know I definitely have more creative periods than others, and I just have decided that that's okay, and just to ride the waves. And sometimes that's what makes life worth living, is the waves of it all. It's not easy when you're in the low part to feel that way,
Right.
but sometimes when you look back on it, right, it's hindsight and all that.
Yeah, and I think it's, yeah, definitely. I think it's like you can appreciate when things are good more when you've gone through the harder parts. And yeah, I feel like it's important to realize that if you're, for example, if you're thinking about success, like there's not one point where you're like, yes, I've reached it, I'm done.
Right.
It's an always ongoing, and you wouldn't really, there's not any one thing that's going to make everything feel like you've made it, or that you've done everything. There's always, as a process. It's like a nebulous cloud. I don't know. There's not one moment or one thing. And so I think that's important to keep in mind too, because when you get stuck on like, oh, if I just do this, or if I'm just in this place, or if I just have this thing, and it could even be like, I want to live more simply if I just can slow down and make my own whatever. But you're still human. It's still going to be ups and downs. So you just have to appreciate it when you can, I guess.
Right, right. And often I think sometimes even if we have a goal and we get there, we get whatever that particular goal is, then there sometimes comes with that a dissatisfaction, because now what am I going to do? Like, now what? Because we are designed, most of us, to enjoy sort of the creative work of some sort. And so we can't just stop. Most of us can't just stop. If I made $1 billion, I'm not trying. But I would have to just try and figure
I
out
mean,
some
you
other.
can.
I would not be working, but I would try to find like ways. I would obviously, if somehow $1 billion fell into my lap, I would work to like give it away, right? Because I don't need it. So yeah, that's a thing. Like, we often have to like remember that the process is where a lot of us really find a lot of satisfaction
Yeah.
and worth, right? Like, if you're a painter, you find a lot of satisfaction in the painting, in the actualing of the work. And
Right.
I think you
Right.
find a lot of satisfaction in the writing process,
Hmm.
not just in the releasing, but in the writing. Like, if
Right.
it was just to write one essay, you would be done, but you don't,
Right.
because you're creative, right? Perfect. Is there any other like bits of wisdom or things you'd like to say about unconventional success that I haven't really asked about?
I don't think so. I think I'm still trying to figure it all out, and maybe it's the same thing. Like there is no answer. It's just something that I'm interested in understanding more for myself, and I'm glad that I have the opportunity to share some of these ideas with other people.
As someone who is always curious, I really do love hearing how other people see it. Even if I don't agree, like, even if it's
Hmm.
different, that's fine, because it's not for me. Their success is theirs.
Right.
And I'm not judging that. But it's fun to like, it's good to have that introspection and see what other people are doing and decide, oh, well, that's a really valuable bit of wisdom, or I don't need that and I can just leave it behind. So that's
Right.
great. And okay, so Anna, tell everybody where they can find you online.
Okay, so I have a Substack called Basil and Honey, and you're going to link to it in the show
I
notes.
am, absolutely.
I can speak it, but it's my name. It'll be easier if you go there.
Hmm.
And then also I share on Instagram, which is my name also, Anna G. Hewitt, and that's my Substack as well. And I think that's about it. Yep.
Okay. So if someone is listening to this and they don't go look at the show notes, if they go to
Yeah,
Substack, they should, if they just search Basil and Honey on Substack,
I
that will come
think
up.
so. Yeah,
Or
or ANNAGHEWITT
okay, because
dot
sometimes
substack.com, I think.
Right. But if you just go to Substack, you could probably search it.
Probably, yeah.
Because if you have your Substack account, and I'm trying to get better about Substack is a whole new thing for me, kind of, and I'm trying to embrace it,
Yeah.
but not like overwhelm my email. So like go and like
Yeah.
read on the
Yep.
site. Yeah, which is kind of
Yep.
fun. Great. Well, thank you so much, Anna. This was a delight. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, it was great talking to you. Thanks so much for having me.